And welcome back. And we are out on court number 1 for the 15th seed Michael Stich against the first British player to reach the second round of the French Open since Jeremy Bates reached the third round in 1989, and he then lost to Boris Becker. And of course it is Greg Rusdeski who is going to be taking on Michael Stich. Here is Greg, 22 years of age, living in Purley in Surrey, currently ranked 74 in the world, playing in his second French Open. Missed out last year because he had tonsillitis, but the previous year he actually had a very good French Open. He beat Mark-Kevin Gollner, Alexander Volkov, and then on the centre court, a match I remember well, took Andrei Medvedev, who was seeded to 5 sets, going down in the 5th. Wayne McEwen is the umpire. Michael Stich playing in his 8th French Open and a semi-finalist in 1991. So it's David Mercer alongside Frew McMillan, and one thing's for sure, Frew, we're going to see some big serving in this match.
I wonder what tells you that, David. Yes, that is for sure. And I suppose that both players will be encouraged by Sampras's performance yesterday. In fact, it didn't even take a very warm day to do it, because the day before against Gustafsson, Sampras was in good form, and that was a dour sort of day. Today we've got quite a lot of warmth, the sort of day that, of course, pleases the big servers. And here, as you're saying, we've got 2 on the 1 court. So it's Greek meeting Greek in many respects. I wonder how many tiebreakers we'll see. Probably the obvious sort of question to ask, but it is clay, so the opportunities for breaking are that much more than if these two had to meet on grass or an indoor court, or even on a general hard court.
It is the first time that they've played each other. And just to remind you of how they got to this second round encounter, Michael Stich beat Patrick Fredriksson, the qualifier from Sweden, 6-4, 7-5, 6-4, and Greg Rusdeski also beat a qualifier, Grant Doyle of Australia, 6-2, 1-6, 7-5, 2-6, 7-5. Rusdeski having been a break of serve down in the 5th set. He was saying afterwards, Greg, that he knew he'd have to serve much better than he did that day. He's working with a new coach now. That's Brian Teacher, the American. They've linked up at the end of the Italian Championships, where Greg lost to Goran Ivanisevic. And he said that he's working on trying to make his backhand more aggressive. That's certainly his weaker wing. Rusdeski tends to slice it defensively. Well, they had a little bit of instant success in St. Pölten, where he had a good first-round win over Gilbert Schaller. So to beat Schaller in Austria on clay, that's a fine win. And then he lost to the Spaniard, Felix Mantilla, in 3 sets in the second round. And then Mantilla went on to reach the final, so that would have encouraged Rusdeski.
Yes, I suppose one of the advantages of trying to play rolled and backhands hit flat out against someone like Schaller is that Schaller tends to hit the ball a little slower. Against Stich today, he's not going to have that much time, so I'm sure we might see a reversion to norm by Rusdeski. Important for him, if he is going to hit through the ball, that he's got to do it right away, because if he gets into a groove of slicing, then the chances are it's a groove that he's going to find very difficult to get out of. And perhaps the only sort of situation in which he might get out of it is if he's 2 sets to love down and he feels he's really got nothing to lose. What the hell, he may as well have a go.
That's Greg Rusdeski's record this year, semi-finalist in Sydney. He's also been a quarter-finalist this year in Adelaide, San Jose and Seoul. He lost to Todd Martin in the semi-finals in Sydney, having beaten Richard Krajicek in the first round, which was a good win. Michael Stich, of course, his appearances this year very restricted. by the ankle injury, which he was recovering from. He suffered it in Vienna last October and then re-injured himself in Milan. But an outstanding week in Antwerp, where he played some brilliant tennis. And we'll certainly be looking at this revised forehand, which he's been working on with his new coach, Sven Grunewald. He used to, of course, coach Mary Pierce. I mean, he seems to have shortened. Here we look at the top 10 rankings. And he seems to have shortened the backswing a little bit and changed the grip a little bit, Stich.
Yes, it's not something that, frankly, is very evident, and I haven't actually questioned him on it. He might not reveal what he had done. But I think it's a very slight adjustment. The problem with changing grips on ground strokes, of course, the problem with changing grips altogether sometimes is that what improves you on the one wing suddenly brings you down a bit on the other, detracts on the other. And so the thing to watch for is, whilst it might be an improved forehand, is the backhand any less impressive? Because it always was a very impressive, particularly the backhand cross-court of Stich. Very impressive shot. There's no doubt that his forehands, umpire Wayne McEwen of Australia, if we can see him. It wasn't the back of his head, he was around the corner. There he is. Fine-looking specimen.
I'll tell him you said that. Looks as if Wayne's losing a bit of hair on top, but I know all about that, sadly. Now this match is in the bottom 16th of the draw. Stich is seeded to meet Thomas Muster in the fourth round, the round of the last 16. The winner of this match will play either Mark Knowles of the Bahamas or our friend Mikael Tillström. Tillström, of course, makes a habit of doing well here. He beat Ivanisevic last year and very nearly beat Sampras a couple of years ago, took him to 5 sets. Greg Rusdeski, who's just clung on to his world record for the fastest serve recorded by a speed gun. Wouldn't necessarily say it's the fastest serve, because there are a lot of courts that don't have a speed gun. 137 miles an hour, or 220.4. And that 0.4 very important, because if you remember in Rome, Richard Krajicek came up with a 220. So he really has clung on to the record by the skin of his teeth.
Yes, it's important, really, as Rusdeski himself admitted, that he does serve well today. And I think it's pretty important that he gets off to a good start. Important for 2 reasons. Firstly, it'll build up his confidence. And also Stich, you want to be able to get to Stich rather quickly, because Stich's form is obviously a very unknown quantity. You can see they're playing for the difference today between 86,300 and 141,000.
Those are figures, of course, in French francs, and if you basically divide by 7, so what's the difference? 14.55 divided by 7.
Just about 8.
Yeah, £8,000. Well, it's worth having, isn't it?
Yes, so the point I'm making is that Stich's form a little unknown. Stich might get the feeling that although, of course, he had a pretty good first round win, it was nevertheless against a qualifier, and here this is much more of a test. So important for Rusdeski really to try and get on top of him early, just to take Stich down a peg or two and try and eat into his what confidence he has. The one blessing for Stich about the Antwerp tournament that he won was that was a win that came after a long break. And he himself says that had he not won that tournament, he would be less certain about his future. But the fact is, he had a long break, came back, played phenomenally well, which he did in Antwerp. Remember, he beat an informed Goran Ivanisevic in the final. That did him so much good, so that he feels he can do it again. And it's therefore important that this man tells him that he can't.
And the other reason, I guess, is that it did seem that Stich was a little short of stamina towards the end of his match. It was quite a grueling match against the Swede. Where's he off to?
Well, he's obviously forgotten his Brill cream.
It was, quite a tough match against Fredriksson. Some long rallies, and it looked as if he was puffing a bit in the 3rd set. So for Rusdeski clearly proved his stamina by winning in 5, and incidentally that was the first time that Rusdeski had ever won a match in 5 sets. He'd lost in 5 sets, such as to Andrei Medvedev. Greg saying, has he scratched? Have I won? That would be a story. if he could get a set here, well, who knows what would happen. But obviously, the form book would suggest that this should be stich in straight sets. But then the form book suggested it should have been Agassi in straight sets yesterday, and we all know what happened to Andre. I'm sure you will have read that he refused to give a press conference, and I'm told by someone staying in the same hotel that he was busily checking out this morning.
Oh, he didn't book the whole hotel. He normally sort of takes over the hotel. I like the story about Agassi and the Australian, where somebody asked him, maybe Stich had forgotten his cap, where somebody asked Agassi whether they shouldn't put a plaque up to the fact that Agassi had hurt his knee on the staircase of the hotel. And the reply from Agassi was that, well, nobody would see it because it was in my room. Now, the implication there is that Agassi actually had a stairwell in his own room. So big was his room in the hotel.
Nicky Pilic in the centre there, just adjusting, as Rusdeski gets us underway. Nicky Pilic, the German Davis Cup captain and former individual coach of stich.
0 counts.
Not the way Rusdeski would have wished to start.
Zero ball.
Of course, one of the great differences between these two players generally is the fact that Stich's returning is of a much higher quality.
Rusdeski looking rather nervy at the start here.
Cancel Caron.
The first of many, I'm sure, from both of them.
No doubt, of course, that on clay the number of aces served can at least be halved, more than halved, in fact.
So Stich starts impressively. Rusdeski tentatively, and an immediate break for the German. Well, certainly signs there of Rusdeski looking rather tight. Shouldn't be. He's played big players on big occasions. He's played Sampras a couple of times this year. Of course, got to the 4th round of Wimbledon last year. A couple of matches on the centre court there. Played on the centre court here at Roland Garros 2 years ago. So he should be used to playing on the big occasion.
Well, yes, but there are two ways of approaching a match. There's the approach that Stich is just so much better than I am that nobody expects me to win, therefore I am going to be very loose, therefore I can go for my shots. Or there's the approach that, hey, I know I can take on these big champs, I know I can come very close, in fact I know I can beat them. And I would suggest the second is Rusdeski's approach today, and consequently that does make you a bit more nervous. He does feel he has a chance, he feels he has a chance against any of these big players, and so he should. If I had a serve like him, I would also feel that way.
Au service, Michael Stich. Counts as 0.
And the difference is that Stich starts with one serve in, Rusdeski starts with a double fault.
Thrown to 0.
And so far Rusdeski's played, I think, 3 backhands, and he's sliced them all. The one opportunity he did have of rolling a backhand, he tried to run round it to play a big forehand.
Just wide.